Welcome back to One-on-One with Mr. U. Of course, I am your host, Mr. U. In studio with us, author of the book, I Dream of Things That Never Were. Ken Kunken is in the house. Ken, how are you today, sir? Good to see you.
Doing great today, thank you. How are you?
Good. Great, man. Glad you're here with us, man. And for those that are watching and listening for the very first time to One-on-One with Mr. U, thanks for making us part of your week. We really appreciate you being here. We are live right now on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And of course, this will be on audio platforms, hopefully within the month of May at some point due to scheduling. So thanks again for making us part of your weekend, for watching and listening. If you have any questions for myself or Ken, by all means, whether you're viewing this episode, drop it in the comments section. We'll answer those questions live on the air. But thanks again for making us part of your day and your week. All right, Ken, so you and I have already been acquainted with each other, so I know your story, but it's so profound. I want you to come on and share with us again. So thanks for being here and doing that. All right, so you have a very interesting story in that you took something that was considered a hard stop for many people in their life, and you use it as a more of a comma than a period, if that makes sense. Love for you to share what happened in 1970, back to the year I was born. Tell me what happened in 1970, man, that kind of changed your life. Go ahead.
Okay, well, on October 31st, 1970, Halloween, I was actually a junior at that time at Cornell University. I was 20 years old, and I was studying industrial engineering. And I was also playing on our school's lightweight football team. They had a special league. It's now called sprint football. At the time, it was called 150-pound football. It was for football players who were smaller than the heavyweight team. And I was playing on that team. And we were playing in a game against Columbia University. And on a kickoff, I ran down the field, tackled the ball carrier. But when I hit him, I broke my neck and severely damaged my spinal cord. And as a result, I'm a quadriplegic. I'm almost totally paralyzed from the shoulders down.
Wow. So this was, I'm assuming that you had a desire to be able to have a career in football. I would assume that's why you were doing it. Now, I'm from that area, so I recognize Cornell and Columbia pretty well, but they didn't have much of a football team in regards to the collegiate area. Syracuse is still trying, but it's not really going as planned. But was that your big plan, to be a football player? Was that something that you aspired to do at that time?
No, definitely not. I was just playing for fun and to try and keep in good shape and just kind of relieve a lot of the stress that I felt was taking place in my life, being a student studying engineering at Cornell. But I grew up playing football as a kid. I loved it, and it was just a nice outlet for me to get some exercise and, as I said, relieve some of the stress in my life.
It totally makes sense. As a sometimes pseudo sports analyst, I look at things like what you're talking about. I'm like, okay, did the situation happen because of a tackling technique, or was it just a freak accident? Were you able to tell from the coaches and people around you what actually happened that caused it?
Well, I would say it's a little bit of both. It was certainly a freak accident. But what happened is when I was tackling the ball carrier, I made initial contact with my head first. They used to call it spearing or spear tackling.
Yeah.
And that's what I had been taught in high school. So when I had the opportunity to tackle the ball carrier, I shot out at him and hit him head first. But unfortunately, when you do that, you're really taking most of the impact in your neck. So when I made the impact, I broke my neck and severely damaged my spinal cord.
Wow. So I'm pretty sure you were hospitalized for a pretty significant amount of time, and you definitely furthered your education during that process. What was, beside the fact that you were dealing with a lengthy hospitalization and paralysis, what was your goal of kind of enhancing your education during that time? Because some people take those kind of moments and they approach them differently. They may wallow in self-pity. They may look at, you know what, I lost my dream of playing football, or whatever the dream might have been. But you went and got an undergrad in engineering. You got a master's of arts at Cornell. And master education also at Columbia in psychology. You did all these things to further your education. Why did you decide to do that at that time? Was there a reason why that time was a pivotal point? Pivotal, early morning. Pivotal point in you furthering your education. What kind of spark?
When I was injured, I had just started my junior year in college.
Okay.
Following my injury, I spent the next 9 months and 20 days in various hospitals and rehabilitation facilities. And while I was in the rehab facility, I was so frustrated because the doctors just seemed reluctant to share a lot about what my injury entailed and what my prognosis was for the future. And I was able to get a hold of a pamphlet put out by the rehab facility, and it described all different aspects of spinal cord injury. I'm hurt between the fourth and fifth cervical in the neck, which is very high up in the neck.
Yeah.
Had I been hurt one cervical higher up, I probably would have lost the ability to breathe on my own. So I was able to get a hold of a pamphlet that the rehab facility published. And with somebody turning the pages for me, it indicated what type of movement I may have. And I have just a little bit of biceps in my left arm, but no triceps, and how it would affect my bodily functions. And it affects my lung capacity. My breathing is diminished. It affects my bowels and my bladder, and just how I could regulate my body temperature. It also indicated what type of careers you could possibly go into with that type of injury. And with somebody turning the pages for me, when it got to the point about my level of injury, the only job I saw that I could someday pursue would be to someday sell magazine subscriptions over the telephone.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
I was devastated. I mean, keep in mind, I had been studying industrial engineering at one of the finest colleges in the nation. And now I'm looking at a career selling magazine subscriptions over the telephone.
Wow.
And then the more I thought about it, Mr. Yu, I started to think, wait a minute, I can't even dial a telephone. There were not touch tone phones back then, just rotary phones. I could not write anything or take notes. And I remember lying in bed thinking, I may not even be able to do that. And fortunately, I had a vocational counselor at the rehab facility who encouraged me to go back to school and make the most of my mental abilities. She felt there was still more I could do if I developed my intellectual abilities. So it was clear to me I really needed to go back to school as soon as I could and continue with my education.
I love that, man. And you did that, man. You did a couple of things that I definitely want to get into a little bit. You went to Hofstra. So you basically stayed in my hometown area for quite a while. You went from Cornell to Columbia, and now you're at Hofstra at School of Law. You did a lot of different things, even became a bureau chief, man, which is pretty commendable, man. One thing, before we get into more of your work, I want to just commend you on something that I always thought highly of you. And I found out from when you shared your story with me, probably late last year, somewhere around it, or fall of last year, I think it was that we met. But you became a nationally certified rehabilitation counselor.
Right.
That's big to me, because I know and have met from my time living up and down the East Coast, I've met people who have had challenges in life, and it takes for them usually a long time, if it ever happens in my being associated with them, that they decide to help people who experience what they have. Sometimes you hear that, but it's often people are so busy dealing with their own personal aspects of things and their own challenges in that, they don't even think about the fact, you know what? I have a story. Because I survived, just because I made it to the other side of this, perhaps I can help somebody else out. And you did that. You probably, I don't know how long it took you to get there, but you deal with severely disabled individuals. And I'm just wondering, what was the spark that kind of made you decide to do that? Because you didn't have to. You could have stayed in your own thing and worried about yourself and looked out for you. Why did you decide, or what do you think is the reason why you decided to impact others that dealt with what you were dealing with?
Well, as a result of my injury, I am totally dependent on others for all my activities of daily living. So I need a lot of help with everything that I do. And it was very frustrating for me because here I was now constantly receiving help from people, but I wasn't able to give any back. And that's a terrible feeling. I really wanted to go into a career where I could help others. And when I went back to Cornell, while I did complete my degree in industrial engineering, I had taken an elective in psychology. And my psychology professor suggested that I pursue a career in psychology and to become a counselor because he felt if I did that, I would be in a position where I could now help others. And to me, that was really important. But let me just tell you a little bit more about what happened. I went back to Cornell, graduated with a degree in industrial engineering,
Right.
became the first quadriplegic to ever graduate from Cornell.
Wow, that's amazing.
Thank you. Then I stayed at Cornell, earned a Master of Arts there, where I majored in counseling and student personnel administration. And I became the first quadriplegic to ever earn a graduate degree from Cornell. And then to increase my counseling credentials, I went to Columbia University. Coincidentally, that happened to be the school I was injured playing against when I had my spinal cord injury. And I earned my second graduate degree. This one, a Master of Education degree, where I majored in psychological counseling and rehabilitation. So I decided to look for a job in the rehabilitation counseling field that would give me the opportunity to help others, particularly those who had disabilities, because that's what I really wanted to concentrate on. Well, Mr. Yu, this was now in the mid 1970s, and it was very different back then when I was looking for a job. I mailed out more than 200 resumes. And again, mailed out. This was before they had mail, right? And looked for a job for a year, and no one would hire me. Think about this, Mr. Yu. I had 3 Ivy League degrees, 2 master's degrees from Ivy League schools, and everybody still felt I was just too disabled to work. Mr. Yu, I was even rejected when I offered to volunteer my services. And it was so incredibly frustrating. Finally, I found one organization willing to give me the chance to show what I could do. And that was an organization on Long Island called Abilities Incorporated, which was part of what was then called the Human Resources Center. It's now called the Viscardi Center after its founder, Dr. Henry Viscardi Jr. And they hired me to work as a vocational and placement counselor for other individuals with severe disabilities. And Mr. Yu, that changed my life. That changed my life. It increased my feelings of self-worth, my self-esteem, and my self-confidence. And it made me just feel so much better about myself because now I was helping others. And I might add that that year that I began work, I was named the Long Island Rehabilitation Association's Rehabilitant of the Year. And that just made me so proud.
Wow, man. I love this, man. I think if I'm not mistaken, I want to make sure I understand right. It sounds like you told me a while back that you got forced into entrepreneurship. I want to make sure I understood that right. You talk about people who were dealing with disabilities and they were unable to get high-paying jobs. That was definitely a source of frustration for you. Is that right when you talk about being forced into entrepreneurship?
Well, it wasn't that I was forced into doing that. I became a placement counselor when I was working at the center. So I was trying to get other people with disabilities into the workforce. And it was incredibly difficult back in the 1970s because employers just did not appear to be ready to hire people with disabilities. Now, keep in mind, this was more than 20 years before the Americans with Disabilities Act took effect. So most facilities were not wheelchair accessible back then. So you didn't see a lot of people who used wheelchairs or had other physical disabilities out in public, let alone in the workplace. So for most employers, it was something very new and maybe scary. And the assumption seemed to be if you had a physical disability, that must affect your whole body and you would not be able to work.
Yeah, that makes sense. And one thing you said that it definitely kind of hit me right in the feels about having to rely on other people. I mean, just being transparent. I don't get sick very often, but when it happens, it's usually a major event. And it's usually a really big, not because of my reaction to it, but just because of what I'm dealing with physically. And it's frustrating to not be able to do things on your own and be independent. Tell me, Ken, how do you deal with that every day? I know you have a loving family, which I'm going to ask you about in a couple of minutes, but how do you deal with the fact that, especially for being somebody like me from New York in that area, and understanding the mindset, the culture, the hustle, the grind of that, and being that independent thinker and not being able to do things for yourself? Is that something that you have overcome? Or are you still dealing with that? What's that like right now?
Well, it's incredibly frustrating. And obviously, I'm still dealing with it because I'm dependent on others for all my activities of daily living. And I might add, at the time of my injury, I was a bit of an introvert.
Hmm.
I would sit in the very back of a large lecture, never raise my hand in class, hope nobody would even notice me, and just
Yeah.
try and blend in. I know there was an expression, too many people try to fit in. What they should really be doing is to try and stand out. I was just trying to fit in. I did not want to stand out. And it was incredibly frustrating because now I had to ask for everything that I needed. I
No,
had
wow.
to speak up or I wouldn't be able to get the help that I did need. And that was very difficult for me. And again, to be dependent on others for things that when you can't do for yourself, nobody could really do something for you as well as you could do it on your own. And here
Oh,
you
no.
have to give directions. Could you move my arm a little bit over to the side? Could you straighten my leg a little bit?
Mm.
I needed to be fed. Um, it just was incredibly frustrating. And it still is difficult, but I was injured more than 55 years ago. It's
Wow.
something I've certainly got a lot more used to now. But I had to learn to be able to give very specific directions to everybody. When I had a personal care attendant, I needed to tell them, go into the closet on the left, on the third shelf, you'll find such and such, and be very specific with everything that I
Yeah.
needed. And it was very difficult.
Wow. Yeah, I can only imagine, man. Well, you're married, you got a beautiful wife, and you got you're the father of three boys, triplets. I don't know what that was like to see. You knew you were gonna have kids, and you got three of them at the
You know,
same time.
right,
I,
Mr. You, when I was injured, I never, ever, ever thought that I would get into a serious relationship with a woman. I mean, I totally ruled that out. I just thought that part of my life would be over. And in fact, I thought it may not be fair to the woman to actually do that type of relationship. But I know I had one of my aunts convincing me not to feel that way. And I should live my life like everybody else did. And I was very fortunate that, I needed to hire personal care attendants to help me with everything that I did. And some of those attendants were women.
mm,
And way back, shortly before the turn of the century in 1999, I hired an individual from Poland. Her name is Anna, and she is the most incredible person I've ever met. Anna's absolutely incredible. And in fact, different than I am in so many ways. I mean, as I indicated, Anna's from Poland. I had spent my entire life on Long Island. Anna's over 6 feet tall. I'm just under 5'8".
mm.
Anna's Catholic and I am Jewish. Anna's a vegetarian and I love to eat meat. Uh, Anna's in exceptional physical condition, works out for more than an hour every single day,
Mm.
and I'm almost totally paralyzed. And yet it just seemed like a match made in heaven, Mr. U. We just
Yeah.
clicked, and soon our relationship turned into, rather than employer employee, it turned into best friends and then a romantic relationship. And in 2003, Anna and I were married, and that was the most incredible feeling to be saying I do and marrying the woman that I absolutely love on that date. But let me go back a little bit further. Before we got married, Anna said that she'd like to have my baby, and not just a baby, my baby. She said she wanted to see a little Kunken running around our home. Now, this really seemed impossible. Keep in mind, at that time, I had been almost totally paralyzed for more than 30 years, and I was already in my 50s. So talk about the impossible. Well, Anna was convinced we could do it. And she convinced me to at least look into it and try.
Okay.
So we researched various options, including in vitro fertilization. And keep
Okay.
in mind now, this was more than 20 years ago. I mean,
Yeah.
it's advanced a lot since then, but this was more than
Yes,
20
sir.
years ago. And we were very excited to learn that it still might be possible for someone in my condition to father a child. I mean, who would have believed that? Well, we pursued it, and my first 3 attempts at it were not successful. But, Anna was convinced we could do it, encouraged me to still try. And on my fourth attempt, it was successful. And then Anna had
Very.
to go through a lengthy process. Yeah, Anna had to go through a lengthy process of fertility treatments. And as
Wow.
luck would have it, she was having difficulty. I
Mm.
mean, who would have thought we may not be able to have our own biological child because of fertility issues with my wife and not with me? But she
That's
maintained
amazing.
a positive attitude. And what I would call the miracle of science, Anna became pregnant. And I was present in the delivery room on January 24th, 2005. And try and picture what this was like. I was present in the delivery room when my wife Anna gave birth to triplets. We have 3 incredible sons, Joey, Jimmy, and Timmy. They're now 21 years old and juniors at 3 different colleges in upstate New York.
I love it, man. Congratulations, man. That's a beautiful story, brother. I want to ask you about that. Are your boys, I don't know how much, what they think, maybe you can kind of help crystallize it for me. Are they into sports? Have they have some reservations about doing sports because of what you're going through? What's that situation like?
Well, they certainly never played football, and they
Okay,
never
okay.
even wanted to watch it on television. But
Oh,
we involved them in a lot of different sports growing up. I mean, we involved them in archery, in bowling, in basketball, in wrestling. We exposed them to a lot of different sports, and the
okay.
one that clicked was the martial arts. We
Really?
enrolled them to study Taekwondo, and they were great. They stuck with it. All 3 of my sons are second-degree black belts in Taekwondo. They also studied a bit of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. They did some teaching, some instructing for others in Taekwondo, and they continue to remain in great shape. And
Huh.
that's the one sport that they got involved with.
Wow. That's amazing, man. That's good. I love this. Just if you can kind of bring this down to one sentence, what keeps Ken going?
Well, right now, my wife and kids. I mean, that's the greatest part of my life. I am thrilled to be a father, thrilled to be a husband of my incredible wife, and as best I can to try and help others now who are going through difficult times, facing challenges in their lives, trying to overcome adversity when they confront it. And if I can help others, that's my mission these days.
Love it. One of the things that I always ask our guests, and I even talk to friends in private settings about this, because I feel as though, excuse me, if we don't have, it's almost like GPS in the navigation. If you don't put a destination in, you're probably not going to get anywhere, right? So I always ask, just kind of question like this. I love to hear your answer on it. What's your end game, man? What's your big hairy audacious goal, if you will? What are you trying to accomplish? Because you've done a lot of different things, engineering. You even went to law school, which is like something that people usually spend the majority of their life in, and then the pre-professional aspect of it, and then the professional realm and all that comes with that. So it's a long arm to be in law. What do you want to accomplish? That's one thing about your story I never heard before. I know you have an incredible book, which I'm talk about in a little bit, but what do you want to do? are you still want to do law? Are you doing law now? What's the big end game for you, Ken?
Well, when I was working as a rehab counselor, I used to speak a lot before groups and organizations
Okay.
concerning affirmative action and non-discrimination for people with disabilities. Excuse me. And often after my, excuse me,
It's okay.
um,
I'll take a drink at the same time. Do it together.
often after my talks, I would be asked questions. And while I was doing my best to respond appropriately, I was always careful to caution the questioners they should really speak with a lawyer about their concerns. And I guess it didn't take long before I
Mm.
started to think, there's no reason why I couldn't become that lawyer. So I left my job as a rehab counselor. I went to Hofstra University School of Law. And when I graduated, well, while I was in law school, I actually did an internship at the district attorney's office. And I loved that job. And I liked being in the courtroom, which was strange. I'm the first quadriplegic to ever work as an assistant district attorney on Long Island.
Oh
And I
wow.
just really loved the job. And I was promoted a number of times where I became a deputy bureau chief and I was helping supervise more than 25 other assistant district attorneys. Well, I worked there for more than 33 years full time, another 8 years part time. I'm now 75 years old, happily
Congratulations.
retired. Yeah, happily retired and enjoying spending more time with my children, uh, who most people seem to think they're my grandchildren and not my children, since I'm more than 50 years older than them. But
Mm.
that's wonderful. But I might add, I wanted to stay involved with helping people with disabilities, and I'm now serving on the board of directors at the Viscardi Center, where I used to work as a rehab counselor.
I love it, man. All right, so we got time for maybe another question or two. You wrote "I Dream of Things That Never Were," the Ken Kunken story. I think it was about 3 years ago. About without going into too much of what you put in the book, I want to spoil it for people who want to potentially read it and purchase it from you. But what's one thing in the book that even today you're really surprised that it happened, and you're surprised that you actually put it in the book for people to read about?
Well, obviously, meeting my wife, falling in love, and becoming the father of triplets. But I might add, Mr. Yu, it seemed like every step of my way after my injury, people always told me, you can't do that. You're
Mm.
just not accepting your disability. You can't do that. And Mr. Yu, I was determined to make the impossible possible. Just because somebody said I couldn't do something doesn't mean I wasn't going to try and prove them wrong.
I love it.
So I really like the title, I Dream of Things That Never Were, because I felt like in much of my life, I was doing things that other people had never done before. So when you talked about a mission, part of my mission is to make the impossible possible and to let people know just because it hasn't been done before doesn't mean you cannot do it now. But I might add another mission of mine too. And these days, for some reason, our current administration seems to have a negative impact, a negative feeling and impression on diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. And I'm here to say DEI is a very good thing. It helps not just one individual, it helps everybody exposed to that individual. It's beneficial to everybody. Diversity, equity, and inclusion helps everybody involved in that. And part of my mission is to show that. I might add that at the district attorney's office, when you leave your job, they have you go through an exit interview where you talk about what you like best about your job, what you thought could be improved. And I'm so proud to say that so many of my colleagues said one of the best parts of their job was meeting, working with, and getting to know me. And the
Wow.
reason why I want to say that is because I know what they were referring to is meeting, working with, and getting to know somebody with a very significant visible disability. Because unless they had a close relative with a disability, most people never had that opportunity to come in contact on a daily basis with somebody with a disability. And they found, one, it didn't involve more work for them, which everybody was certainly concerned with, but also it helped inspire and motivate them to do a better job. And when I hear people talk about diversity, equity, inclusion as some sort of negative, some sort of imposition on others, I'm here to say that's not what my colleagues found. That's not what I found. And I might add that 2 years ago, the current district attorney in Nassau County actually named an award after me, the Ken Kunken Award, that's given out to the outstanding assistant district attorney every year in our office. It's the only award they give out on an annual basis. And they want to honor the outstanding assistant district attorney who displays the same type of work ethic and has the same impact on his or her colleagues as the guy in the wheelchair. And I think that's so significant.
Okay, man. Thanks for sharing that, brother. So on the screen, for those guys that are watching, if you're listening, you can see it. So I'm going to shout it out for you. The name of the book, published in 2023 by Ken, is I Dream of Things That Never Were, the Ken Kunken story. And of course, his website, we can find his work. We can reach out to him potentially, kenkunken.com. That's KenKunken.com. It'll also be inside our show notes, so it won't be hard to find. But Ken, thanks for being here, man, and being a part of this conversation. I'd love to get a chance to reconnect with you again, with you and Anna, and hear your story again. It sounds even better than the first time, man. So thanks again for making us a part of this.
Thank you, Mr.
Journey that you're on, man. The pleasure's mine, sir.
And thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my story with your listeners.
It's not going to be the last time. I got 4 shows, brother, so we can make it work, man. Anna, thanks again for all you do for Ken and for being supportive. Great seeing you. Probably won't come on camera, but it's okay. I know how you look. But great to see you, too. Thank you so much again. For you guys that are watching and listening for the first time, thanks for making us part of the week. We're on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn right now. We'll have it up on audio as soon as we can. But thanks again for watching One-on-One with Mr. U. I'm your host, Mr. U. That's Ken Kunken. Thanks again for making us a part of your week. Have a good day. Thanks.